Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, welcome to the Moon of Dice podcast. Did you already say it's a podcast about tabletop RPGs? I completely blanked immediately.
Well, it in fact is a podcast about tabletop RPGs, including running them and playing them and our experiences on either side of the screen. This is the part that you usually handle, so...
I don't know what happened today, guys.
But yeah, me and Ramon are GMs and players in various games and various systems, and we like to talk about how those games go, how they turn out, and our experience sort of, planning and running sessions to hopefully pass along some interesting advice, and recapping sessions because, one, it's really fun. We like to talk about the times we spend with our friends, and two, we like to, that's mostly it, really. Anything else is just kind of an excuse.
That's it. Thanks for saving, Calvin. I don't know why I messed up the intro today. Anyway, episode 78, folks. Been doing this for a long time now. But hey,
just a handful of weeks.
Handful of weeks, just maybe two handfuls. But yeah, let's get into this podcast. Thanks for joining.
2 full scoops of weeks. So this podcast, today we'll be recapping a couple of Pathfinder sessions. One that we were players in our Lost Mine of you got me doing it. Lost Mine of Phandelver game.
Listen, it's the Lost Mine of Tim Delver. Okay.
That's not what it's called, but we will be recapping one of those, us getting further into the Wave Echo Cave, and a recent session that I ran involving some stuff in the Dream Realm and a combat that I didn't plan and turned out very interestingly, which I'll get into later. But first, you have to start off with the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice weekly GM tip of the week.
All right, folks, it's the Win with Dice weekly GM tip of the week. I can say that way better than the intro for some reason today. Brought to you by Ramon, who basically is stealing what Calvin said a couple of minutes ago. Cool, thanks, Calvin.
You're welcome. I stole it from someone else. So.
Yes, the epic stealing train, right? It's just like, that's how DMs work. Someone stole something from someone, stole something from someone, stole something somebody else.
That's how stories work.
Yes. Right. So the weekly gym tip of the week. For this week, leveling up is kind of cool, and players get really excited about it. But sometimes it doesn't really impact the narrative. Obviously, you get enough XP. On paper, you get your level, you get new abilities, you get new spells, that kind of stuff. And most times that stuff happens off of the table, right? But really, you're trying to it's a very mechanical thing. It's not very narrative. What you can do is you can bring the narrative into it by describing a montage of how your character learns their new abilities or how they get their strength or something like that, right? It could be on some downtime, right? You finish an adventure, you get enough XP or you level up your party, get some downtime. During downtime, you can, have a training montage for the fighter where they're practicing on a dummy, or they go find someone to teach them how to do something, or the wizard researching a new spell and then, figuring out the spell math or something and be like, aha, eureka, now I can cast fireball, right? It's wait, I've been thinking about it as squares and really it's just circles or something, The druid goes and reconnects with some old forest and is like, oh yes, forest gives me more magic powers or whatever. Or the bard goes and talks up a couple ladies or something and he's like, wait a minute, I know how to be sexier now, right? Whatever.
Use sexy magic.
Yeah, I know, sexy magic. Actually, it's this kind of reminds me of if anyone's ever played the Persona games, where you go around and do random ass activities and you're able to upgrade your guts or whatever, and sometimes the games kind of translate into the combat. I don't know. I think that's kind of cool. But anyway, do the montage every time you guys level up, especially. It could even be during if you level up while in a dungeon or something like that. You can have a montage of flashbacks of when your character like is it like doing something in the dungeon, and they're like, something clicks there, but now they're able to piece it together and they get a little bit stronger. That kind of deal could help you guys out. So yeah, that's your
Yeah, you can also like in that way you can
yeah.
also use it like as a way to RP with other characters, like the fighter and the barbarian come together to practice combat. The druid and the ranger hang out in the forest for a while. Then you just all return with new skills and abilities. It's not something I've done personally. It's just something I heard of that I thought was really cool. So I just wanted to throw that out there for people to try as an idea because I think it could be really fun, and I think I might try to implement that the next time my players level up in a game.
Sure, it could be a really fun start to like a little bit of downtime, or like the cap, like just like the interlude between quests and stuff like that, right? Let's kind of like bring in some of the day-to-day life of your adventuring character who like they're not out questing, they're just like sharpen my sword or something, right? Like the general mundanity to it. It'd be kind of cool to bring the stuff back down and focus on the character and not so much of like we gotta destroy the dragon princess and save the land or whatever. Yeah, so there you go, folks. That's your One with Dice Weekly Gym tip of the week.
Boom. All right. So let's hop into the show. But before we do, I almost forgot to talk about this. I'm just going to take a few minutes to gush excitedly and unashamedly about the legend of Vox Machina. I almost forgot to bring this up. So multiple times on this show, I've mentioned Critical Role as my like favorite tabletop RPG podcast stream show situation. And
Never heard of it.
Get out of here. Well, I mean, if you've been living under some sort of D20 sized rock, you might not know that Critical Role has an animated show that just started on the 28th of January on Amazon Prime. And oh my gosh, as a fan of the show who came in during the first campaign and now seeing some of that animated, it is just like ridiculous to me. Because I'm like, every time as I'm watching this show, I'm like recognizing things. I'm like, oh, that's the belt. Oh, that's the dagger. Oh, that's the sword. It does this thing. Oh, look at it doing the thing. And it's just so awesome to see. Like, it almost feels like you're watching a game in a weird way. Because you can tell like what the successful roles are, what the failed ones are, and they don't have to specifically say, oh, I'm casting Detect Magic, I'm casting, I don't know, Holy Weapon or whatever. But you can see, oh, they're looking around and seeing what stuff is magic, and they're looking at this person's weapon and suddenly the weapon is more powerful and stuff like that. And it's got this incredible cast, because you got like all the Critical Role people, the Matt Mercers, the Liam O'Briens, the Laura Baileys, the Ashley Johnsons, the Travis Willinghams, the Townsend Jaffes, the Marisha Rays, the Sam Regals, who have done like a billion trillion things that I'm not even going to try to list. And like David Tennant is in it, Kari Payton is in it, a whole lot of people all over the show. Greg Griffin is in it. And it just looks so pretty as well. I have, once again, I try not to have like a favorite character because everybody like does something cool that makes them my favorite for an episode. But I mean, I do kind of have a favorite character. And I've once again fallen in love with Percival Frederickstein von Nussel Kowalski Dorolo III, aka Percy, aka No Mercy Percy, who is the coolest guy, bar none. It's just a really fun show. If you're into like tabletop RPGs and stuff, I like if it's got like this like really like raunchy, dirty humor as well as these cool epic action moments. It's like being in a campaign with a bunch of your friends that have like very immature senses of humor, set to an awesome soundtrack with very flashy effects. They put out 3 episodes and they were all really good. And they're doing one of my favorite arcs from the first campaign, and I'm really excited to see how it goes.
Oh, that sounds awesome, Calvin. I'm glad that you get to experience that. It sounds like you know they're it's like you get to relive the fun of it again, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool. I mean, that goes to show you that, the stories that we tell at the table obviously can translate into something greater. I think it's always great when, you can take whatever tabletop RPG you're playing and transfer it to another medium, whether it be like art or like film or like whatever, right? I think it's awesome.
Yeah, that was something I used to do, and part of me wants to get back to it, but it was also like, it took time to do. But like writing recaps from the first point of view perspective of my character doing like these journal-ish things. I mean, now that I'm better at taking notes, maybe I'll get back to doing that, because that's basically what this feels like. Like, after watching the 3rd episode and going back to like episode 25 or so of the first stream campaign, it's like, those are the things. That's what's happening.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm just really into that. I'm probably gonna gush about it every week, so just look forward to that. But let's get into the actual parts of the show, otherwise I'm gonna get completely distracted again by how incredible this show is. So we've got some Pathfinder recaps today. We wanted to start off with the Lost Mine of... I almost called it Path of Phandelver again. Lost Mine of Phandelver campaign.
AKA the Path of Phandelver. Don't let Calvin tell you how to name your own campaign. My campaign.
You're the one who named it.
Well, it's our friend Tim, our wonderful friend Tim, who is running Lost Mine of Phandelver, but converted to Pathfinder, a 2E, and we are having a blast playing in that game. It's awesome. Tim's a great DM. We've talked to him lots on the channel. We've actually had him on podcasts. Shit, Calvin, take it over.
Well, when we last left our heroes, they were making their way through the Wave Echo Cave. Those heroes, of course, being... so we've got a changeling druid, Teeks. We've got a human wizard, Silrona, who occasionally disappears to a cowboy dimension. We've got Bren, the human ranger, who's better at punching. Thalum Wavesplitter, the sailor human fighter, who's an expert with shields. And Kavo, the half-orc barbarian / miner. Miner as in, like, digging. He's
minor in rocks, not in youth.
Yes. This being an audio show, I have to specify. We were making our way through the Wave Echo Cave, trailing through some tunnels heading up northwards. Ran into a beholder figure who seemed to be a bit out of sorts, but we moved on, leaving them alone, until we came up to a cave with some bugbears and a drow that turned out to be a shapeshifter. We fought them off. Silrona disappeared into the cowboy dimension, which is essentially when Ramon can't make it for a game and has to go. And then we were left sort of within one of these tunnels in the cave. And we basically started off with just doing some searching and looting. Did some magic detecting, and we were able to find an old-looking shield that had some, some marks covering it. It looked a bit worn, but still well-preserved for how long it had been there, or at least how long it seemed to have been there. Bren was using it to pretend to be a door, like Thalum, because Thalum very famously held down like an entire doorway. I think at least a couple of times. Because he is, again, the shield expert. And then we also realized, so whenever Silrona disappears, he leaves behind this mystical horseshoe, which we briefly forgot, so Thalum went to pick it up, although I think Bren got it at some point afterwards. Teek sat down, tried to identify the shield. She was able to identify how it would function currently, as a Spellguard shield, but there was also some sort of power to it that was lost at that point in time that she couldn't quite figure out. And that was kind of when I was like, man, I wish our wizard was here to know things. I'm like part healer, part the only other magic person here.
Yeah, you're definitely like, I'm like the first, like you're on the bench. I'm definitely like, on the court kind of magic user.
Basically.
Like everybody's like, oh, the wizard's not here. Druid, help us. All I do is punch things.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with, I don't know, I think Teeks in her head is having a rivalry with Silrona because Silrona can do so many spells. And Teeks, like, she can do... it's just a balance of, like, character classes, right? Like, how many spells you have available to you versus how many you can do in a day. And Teeks is more limited to how many she can do a day, but she has access to all of the spells. So she's always like, yeah, I already cast the spell, like, a couple of times. I can't do anything else.
Yeah, but Teeks does have the power to like turn into stuff and actually do some combat. Solrona can only really like do spells, so you have that trade-off there.
I mean, tell Teeks that, she doesn't know.
True.
So yeah, then we had to do some climbing, which was a bit of a struggle for me and my spindly arms versus all these martial classes and their incredible strength. But we were able to get up there, and we were in pursuit of a bugbear who had escaped the combat previously, and we could hear some groans and a loud thud coming from up ahead. So we headed forward. The tunnel sort of led into what looked like a carved trench within the middle of it. A room completely filled with darkness, and as we moved forward, we found ourselves in the middle of a room full of zombies. So we took up this new shield. We started fighting these zombies. There were more noises ahead. Sounded something like something like wet and meaty being dropped. We were casting some spells. Well, I was casting some spells. I was getting a lot of use out of Disrupt Undead. Thank goodness I prepared it that day. And then as Calvo moved up, he saw among the zombies there was also this floating, flaming skull, which is on one hand pretty metal, but on the other hand pretty scary.
Nice. I think it was like a will-o-wisp, right? Probably.
I don't remember what it was called. I just called it a flaming skull the entire time.
True. I mean, that's what it was.
Probably. And then Thalum as well was moving up through the darkness and then like almost like tripped on the body of a bugbear. Apparently, it had ran afoul of these zombies. Those same zombies were now moving to surround Thalum. And then there was a brief moment between the two of them. I think Teeks and Thalum might get along well because they're both very familiar with the water. But there was a zombie that was like grabbing onto Thalum, and then Teeks just used the lance of energy to like slice its arms off. So like the zombie died, but the arms were still there.
It's like, I'm pretty sure like this campaign is like a horror comedy.
Basically.
If I could describe, there's a lot of silly things that happen as like parallel to a lot of graphic things. It's like
literally, because like right after that, Thalum asked Teeks if she needs a hand, as he like took one of the zombie arms off of him and held it up. And I don't know, like this is why I love the Legend of Vox Machina show, because that's exactly how I picture recapping these campaigns as an episode of a show and describing these scenes and moments. But yeah, you're certainly right about genre there.
For sure, man. Also, really like Tim's heavy usage of like lighting. Like lighting's a big thing because normally I think a lot of us just kind of give off lighting and like actual ranges and stuff like that, but it brings like this cool thing because I for the most part we haven't really been dungeon delving. It's been a lot of overland stuff, so actually like being inside of a dark place and not being able to see and taking your light with you, it's like pretty cool. And as like we're physically moving around the map and Tim's like revealing it, so as we move around sometimes we'll just Resident Evil style, like walk into a group of zombies. We're like, oh shit, right? Like, or like we'll walk and then we'll see one of them. We're like, oh, it's just one zombie, and then literally like a whole bunch of them comes within the light range. We're like, oh, I'm in danger, right? Like, it's pretty fun.
Like another benefit, it's another benefit of these virtual tabletops. Like you have very effective use of lighting that I don't know how you would replicate in a real like space, such that like the players also can't see the thing.
You have to like draw the map in as they were moving at a certain distance, right? Like it would be a little complicated, but you could pull it off. But also technology is really good, so you just need like one computer, right? Like and then you'd be able to pull it off, or like a tablet or something like that. Just on the table. But that would be the only way I think you would do it. Or like you have like a plexiglass or something clear over the map, and as like your players move on, like you colored it all in with like a whiteout, not whiteout, but a dry erase. And then as like they're moving, you erase the parts that they can like the on the plexiglass, so it reveals the map underneath. that would be a way to do that too.
I mean, that's
A lo-
doable, but
a lot of work.
incredibly complex.
A lot of work. Just open up Roll20 or whatever and just go in with that. It's way easier.
Big fan of that. So, so Kavo, being the badass he is, he took a zombie's head off using his pickaxe, and then was able to twirl it around and use that to smash the rest of it into mush. Bren was able to kill the flaming skull, but it just set him on fire a little bit, because Bren likes to punch things. And with some investigation, we found that the room we were in was a trench connected to a water wheel, and it seemed to be like the source of power for the furnace of Waybaco Cave, where like the stuff would have been smelted, and it was near the wizard's chamber we had seen in the previous session, so things could be like quickly enchanted. So this is where they did some crafting stuff. Now at that point, with how we were filling out the map, we could tell that we were fairly close to where the beholder guy was. So Teeks and Thallon went off to talk to him about the shield, because he was the only person around who could have a discussion about it, even if it wasn't a very easy one to follow for him. And they were shown a diagram of the shield, but apparently they weren't meant to have crafted it yet. Like, there weren't orders to craft it at that time. They had other stuff they needed to craft first. So, of course, we tried to lie. Something that I don't know if anyone in this party has any good charisma at anything.
No, the only one is like Deputy.
Yeah, literally, Silrona's rat familiar has the highest charisma out of everyone.
At least they like. Obviously, I put points into like his being trained in diplomacy or whatever, right? Because I was like, I don't know, a talking rat lawyer sounded really funny. So let's go with that.
Well, we could have used him, because at that moment, when Teeks tried to lie and say that they were like mine inspectors or something, the beholder literally bit her, and then Fallon grabbed it, trying to twist two of the eye tentacles into a knot together. Then Bren arrived, and as Bren arrived, that is when Silrona suddenly reappeared, bursting out of the magic horseshoe that was kept in Bren's pocket, leading to Bren immediately being depantsed.
Which is pretty funny. We played up the whole thing where like Bren is now pantsless, and Silrona's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Right, and then immediately, because I kind of jumped in and I missed out that whole part that Calvin just described, I was like, "What is going on?" Full on, just like, all right, let's roll with this. See how if we can, continue talks with this thing. I mean, to be fair, like I kind of wanted to fight it. I was like, thing is kind of annoying. Not like annoying in the sense of like it wasn't fun to interact with, or it wasn't cool because it was like kind of weird. I was just like man, I just feel like it would be a cool fight, like I've never fought a beholder before.
Yeah, there's definitely those things that like you as the player want to do, but then you think the character probably wouldn't want to do that, and you got to try to like, well, how do I get these two to match?
Yeah, right. So I ended up trying to. I brought out the power of deputy, and I got a decent roll on the diplomacy to try and work things out, and immediately the beholder's like, oh yeah, obviously this guy is your foreman, and you guys are miners. Or like the mouse was the foreman, or the rat deputy was the foreman, and you guys are the miners. And he's like, oh, you should fire them. And deputy's like, yeah, we probably should. And trying to like de-escalate the situation and basically just get everybody away so that we didn't start a fight.
Unfortunately, passions were high and pants were low as Bren slapped the creature.
Then immediately the creature was like, well, I will wet your pants, because he has create water and
and fear and confusion, which led to a babbling effect. So Bren was standing there with his pants down, babbling, afraid, with water all over his undergarments.
And so I took Bren outside, and I was like, listen, like, are you doing okay? Like, which was pretty funny. Silrona comforting a pantsless Bren, and they're like, we should go get some ice cream or something. It's like you had a long day.
Yeah, is Sorona becoming the dad of the group?
He's a pretty bad dad. He's he's always leaving
dad,
all the time. He's always leaving. Don't know when he's gonna come back. Like, yeah, he's a pretty bad dad. Yeah. So, but after all that, I think we ended up initiating combat, which then
after our long discussion of create water and create food, we did
right.
We did end it.
We did have a very long conversation about it, which apparently was at one of the highlights of the session. I felt kind of bad because we were talking about pretty much nonsense. Tim was basically sitting there being like, I appreciate this conversation, but like maybe we should move on.
Yeah. Very patient though.
Yeah, thanks. More patient than me. I would have been like, the beholder attacks and rocks fall from the ceiling. Everyone's dead. But yeah, I think we started combat. I don't remember exactly how it went, but I remember Kavo basically came in and was like, it's dead now.
Yeah, so Kavo came in to attack it, and at a point where it had like a lot of damage applied to it, it called out for a master that this I think it was called the Spectator. Not a beholder, but same diff. He claimed that he failed this master and then just kind of like blinked out, just straight up disappeared,
popped out of reality. Just poop.
Oh, and I'm sure he won't show up again, and I'm sure the green dragon won't show up again, and I'm sure we'll never have any problems with anything that's still alive.
Yes, of course. And everybody was like, all right, that was kind of weird. I think Solrona went and identified what the shield was originally, and it was like a mirror shield or something like that. I forget what the exact term for that item is.
Reflecting shields?
Yes, a reflecting shield, which, you were able to like reflect spells back at, spellcasters, but over time and it being like, kind of worn down, it actually degraded into a spell guard shield. Mm-hmm. Where it was good. It had, I think, its armor bonus or something like that, or hardness to like, or saves, which is like pretty cool. I like the idea of like powerful magic items over time degrading and losing some of like its properties, but like degrading to like maybe like a lower version or something that's similar, but ultimately not what it used to be. Right.
Yeah, it was a good play, like making those, like relating those two items, because there is one that's like higher level and one that's lower. So it was really interesting that like mechanically it became this other thing.
Yeah, which I think is pretty cool. I think I might start doing that, especially for like low level gear. Not low level gear, but low level magic items. So when you're first getting those first bits of like +1s or whatever, I'm gonna, it'd be cool to be like, yeah, this sword has like it's obviously like important and cool and magical, but it's worn down, or like there's something that needs to be restored on it for it to be like cooler, right?
Yeah, I think you can do that with using some of the custom item rules in the Game Master's Guide, like maybe just swapping in some like DCs and stats and stuff. There was also a particular kind of equipment that I know its stats change as you level up, but I can't recall what it is. I think relics maybe, but I'm not entirely sure if I'm remembering.
Yeah, I mean, you could have specific magic items too, like a flame tongue or something, but it starts off as like a +1 sword, right? And then like eventually you like through whatever things that you need, you get enough to unlock it to become it full restored to be a flame tongue. You get to shoot fire out of its swordness. I don't know. The blade is what the swordness is. Yeah. Thanks, Ramon's brain. It's so good. Shit. All right. So after collecting ourselves again.
We went and explored further. We came across some very old skeletal remains of like gnomes, dwarves, orcs, and ogres, like an indication of the battles that have been fought over Wave Echo Cave many years ago. There was a noise that Kavo investigated, leading to some ghouls that we were able to deal with pretty easily, although one ghoul jaw broke off while it was trying to bite Silrona. We stopped for a bit of a rest, and then this is the point where the tunnel started to split up and the party started to split up.
We're doing so well too. I think it's just like a matter of time. Like the longer we play, the more likely we're gonna the party's gonna split. It is something with that group of players or this group of players that we're with. That we're just like, I'm gonna go left, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go right, and
then we don't figure out a consensus. We just go.
I think I think everyone's just really confident in themselves or something.
It's gotta be something. Like,
we're fine. I mean, at any point we could just, yell out and be like, help or whatever, right? But it was interesting. I didn't really remember why we split the party. We just all started going in different directions and everybody was cool with it.
I mean, basically, because I know I fell behind because I was busy trying to figure out what spells I needed for that day.
Yeah.
I really should have put tree form on my spell list.
Oh my god, tree form is the worst spell, I think.
I'm telling you, one day.
Yeah, you're deep underground, man. Like, what tree's gonna be here?
When we get out of here, every single day, I'm gonna save a second level spell slot for tree form.
Second level? Oh my god.
And you wait and is it even second level? It has to be, right? Well, whatever. I will always save a spell slot for tree form. And at some point, it's going to be useful. You just wait and see.
You say so.
So yeah, Teeks fell behind. Bren and Kavo had gone in one direction, leading to them running into a couple of bugbears that they started to fight. There was a kill one, and the other ran off. Fallon and Silrona, they had run into some ochre jellies, which we had seen previously, so we knew how they worked. You do
it was one ochre jelly.
that is fair. Like when you slash or pierce or use electricity on it, it splits into two, which happened.
Lots, because to be fair, Silrona doesn't do any of that stuff. He just really shoots magic missile. Our friend Fallon was like, "Let me try out this ogre hook that we haven't used in a long time." Immediately, split the ochre jelly. Then it got way worse from there, folks.
Yeah, basically, it just kept splitting. Because the thing is, like, when it splits, each of them has half the health as the previous creature did. So the health points, the HP is about the same, but they get extra actions, basically. Like, it's a new creature with a full turn of actions. So the action economy quickly is going to balance in the jelly's favor as it keeps multiplying.
Oh, it did. And it did. I think we split that thing like 4 times for some reason.
You sure did.
I don't know why. Everyone just kept coming up with solutions which involved splitting it in half again. And then by the weight of dice or the weight of action economy, Fallon and Silrona got down. We got wounded. We got hit 0 because obviously like this thing still hits like a truck.
It sure does.
And now once it's split, it can hit like a truck all the time, like multiple times. So all of a sudden instead of 3 actions, on the enemy side we're looking at like 12. That's 12 attacks. The first attack with like a +8 or something like that. It's like it was bad times for us.
Yeah, like Fallon and Silrona went down. Teeks had to get them up, and then called for help. Kavo and Bren arrived, and we were fighting for our lives out here. We did have to have some discussion on how does dying work, which is something I am incredibly familiar with, apparently.
Yes, because it's the funniest thing. I think the fact that you've killed so many characters, while like I have the reputation of being like the deadly DM for some reason.
It's because you have a die that you call the PC killer.
It's all smoke and mirrors.
What?
That die has never actually killed any PC.
I was under the assumption, if that's what it's called, that's what it does.
Yeah, I know a lot of that's the whole point. That's what you call it, the PC killer, to instill the fear.
Well, I'm
Guess what?
still gonna be afraid, but
You call it, yeah, but I just yeah. So we learned that the dying conversion to wounds. It's only like if you were dying, gain a wound, not all of your dying stacks of dying convert into
yeah,
those wounds. Because then, if that was the case, Serona was super dead.
yeah, no.
Uh,
Luckily for you, you were only getting there, and very luckily for you, you had Die Hard because you definitely got to dying 4 at one point.
That was like a clutch decision. I don't remember ever taking Die Hard, but I was like, I'm pretty sure I thought about it and I was like, I'm like a wizard. If something bad's gonna happen to me, it's gonna be really bad. I should just get Die Hard just in case.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely like the best feat to have in Pathfinder 2, because essentially it gives you one more chance to save yourself before death.
Yeah, yeah. The classic like being downed by a crit and then rolling a natural one is like that's what killed Drake, Calvin's first character in the pirate campaign.
Mhm.
So if he had Die Hard, then actually he would have been alive. Funny enough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what would have happened to if he would have survived that entire round of combat, but he certainly wouldn't have died the way he did.
Yeah.
It
But
was a valuable lesson.
yes, but now I have a weird dragon person's body, and I'm a weird necromancer in a sewer. Wonder what's gonna happen. Ooh.
Something terrible, probably.
Probably something horrific. You guys should probably go back there and solve that issue eventually. Whenever we play the pirate campaign again.
So, yep.
Oh, go ahead, Calvin.
So we were able to get Thalum and Silrona back to their feet. We were able to finally defeat the jelly, but as we were sort of like recollecting ourselves, that one bugbear that got away came back with friends. And we suddenly found ourselves facing down multiple bugbears within the dark tunnels of the Wayback Cave, with probably more on the way. I'm getting the feeling, I don't know if this has been confirmed, so I might just be being dumb here, but I'm pretty sure this black spider person that we've been chasing is leading these bugbears. I think that's been confirmed, but if not, then that is my suspicion, so hopefully it is what's happening.
Yeah. So, and then that's where Tim called it with this like epic reveal of like, aha, fools, out of the fire or out of the frying pan into the fire. Like, so, yeah, I think we goof around a lot in that game and we forget that, we're still relatively low level and our HP is good, but it isn't that good.
We're brave, that's all it is. And yeah, I think the other bugbears did mention Black Spider, just so people know that I'm not dumb. But yeah, no, we are really, I mean, again, it comes with the tone of the game. We walk in with overconfidence and swagger, and then some pain happens, and then we push back, and that's basically how combat goes.
True. Most times Silveruna never gets hurt because of all the beefy boys. So, but this time I was running with one fewer beefy boy next to me, so I got caught up in it.
Yeah, I mean, Silrona loves to like run up and kick a door down and then hide.
And immediately run away. It's like that Tom and Jerry meme where Tom is like opens the door and points like the show up. That's like exactly what Silrona does. It's like yo Brennan Fallon, go mess that guy up. Like
I mean, yeah, basically. So yeah, another great session. Gonna be really tense because we've definitely used up some resources where not all of us are at full health. And now we've got a whole bunch of enemies ahead of us that we gotta, I don't know.
But we did manage to get enough XP to level up. So Tim has allowed us to level our characters up in between those two fights, or the dealing with the Walker Jelly and starting this fight with all these bugbears. So we'll have a little bit more tools in our belt to handle this fight, so I'm not too worried about it, and a little bit more HP, but That'd be exciting. Who knows? Maybe we'll all die. Actually, I was perfectly, fine if Solrona dies. It's actually, it's a weird trend where like at the last leg of a campaign, my character always dies. And I'm always oddly okay with it. I'm always like, yeah, I've done a lot with this character. It's fine if the story just ends right here. It happened the first time in when I was in a game of Rise of the Rune Lords. We did Rise of the Rune Lords, and my character died like right. I think I would say like 4/5 of through the story. At the last leg of it, where we're actually like gonna go beat up the Rune Lord, I switched it to a different character because at that point, like I think like I was playing a character from level 1 to level like 12 or something like that, something like crazy. It was like a crazy amount of levels, and I was like, it was a really long campaign. It was really fun, but eventually you've just done the same stuff over and over again. And like I'm a dude who likes to try new stuff all the time, so which was cool. I ended up at the end of the final battle. Spoilers for Rise of the Rune Lords has been out for like a billion years now. We were fighting a Rune Lord who is a very magical person in a dimensional pocket where there was floating islands of doom and lava everywhere. So it was obviously pretty epic. But the guy put up like a force field, and he was like, "Meh, meh, meh, take these meteors," and we're like, "Lol, teleport," because my character knows dimension doors. So I had everybody like grab onto me, and I was like boop boop, and then proceeded to, by the terms of initiative, destroy this motherfucker in one go. So that was kind of cool. Everyone just basically just pressed their alt and blew him up, which was awesome. Yeah, that's my story.
Well, hopefully Sorona is able to survive this because definitely we're going to be doing stuff after we finish the Mina Phandelver story. I sent Tim some notes on some things for Teeks' background. I don't know what's going to happen with them. Cool. I like to write things that leave plenty of space for stuff to be filled in, so...
Yeah. It's your secret second tip, folks. Leave open-ended character stuff. I mean, if everything's already solved or resolved, then there's nowhere to go. After you've basically just actually know where to go from the start, right? So it'd be nice in your backstories or whatever you're planning for your character to be like some open-ended stuff. Let you and the DM can collaborate and explore that character more.
Yeah, like as a GM, I like to receive things that are like, hey, here's an NPC in my background. Because then I could be like, okay, well, what would this person be up to now? So that's what I try to give out when I'm playing a new game.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've got that, and we've got, real quick, I ran a game just yesterday. I wonder if we should start these games earlier in the day, because they always run so late, and then everyone seems so tired, especially when we do, like, long combats.
Well, maybe you're making your combats too long, man.
Ramon, I don't know what you're talking about.
Thought about that? You're like,
7 rounds is reasonable for...
Like, 7 rounds is quite long. 7 rounds for a boss encounter, I think, is perfectly fine. That you've been building up to for a while, right? But like 7 rounds for just like a random ass thing, that's like draining, Holmes. Like,
nah, it was not entirely random, but also not entirely planned, basically. So when we last left off with the Crown of Dragons campaign, the players would follow a path leading them to the small town of Greydrift, where the witch character Talia came from. This party being the human witch Talia, the elf druid Valzana, with her companion Steven, a shocker lizard, human fighter Edgar, and a human bard Randy, or Randy Copperfoot.
Nice. The good old Draco Coronum gang.
Yeah.
My favorite campaign so far, apparently, that we've been talking about. That I personally have never played in, but is very excited to hear what's up with those guys. Definitely am a fan. So hopefully Calvin doesn't kill anybody else.
Well, I mean... So, like, the way last session ended, they were still in the dream realm. They had finally made it from where they were to Greydrift, where they met up with a bunch of hags who all claim to be part of the same coven, which is being led by the Night Matriarch, who was the one that had given Talia her power in the first place. They all met with the Night Matriarch, the coven casting a spell, a certain door through other dimensions, that I may at some point have misremembered the count of how many people it actually functions with on, but fortunately it was able to work if I just didn't count the Druid's companion. So I didn't.
but you could just hand wave that stuff away. Like,
I mean, largely, yeah, because they were just going to. It was like they were specifically using this one person's staff to cast the spell, and they were specifically going to one place. So arguably, it was already limited enough that it would function. But you could still make the case that it could function that way if you just go to one place, and maybe you can bring extra people or something like that. But narratively, it worked out the way I wanted it to with the number that it had. So. But also, yeah, like I could have just hand waved it, but then I was like, oh no, wait, this actually works out for exactly what I wanted. So,
well, thanks for checking your math, man. Like, or like showing your work.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of the spell when I was running the session, and it was one of those by the seat of your pants sort of things. I was probably remembering it from like 5th edition or something. But anywho, they were in the Dream Realm, and they met the Night Matriarch, who told Talia that she knew of Talia's being part of this adventuring party that's on a quest to recover the Crown of Dragons, the Dracoronum, and she wanted to use that incredible power to terrorize the land of Tovaros, because the Night Matriarch is powered by nightmares. The more nightmares people have, the more powerful she is, and her apex of power was when the land was ruled by that evil Lich Wizard many centuries ago. And she's like, hey, that guy wore the crown, so if you're looking for it, you go get it, you do some bad stuff with it, then maybe I can come back to the material plane and spread even more havoc. So Talia is kind of like reeling from that.
Just think of like, get crown, do bad stuff, profit. Like,
I mean, you joke, but that's basically her plan.
Just like sitting there in her evil little dimension house, is like, like foolproof.
Nothing can go wrong. So yeah, as Talia's reeling from that, most of the hags are in their own conversation, but one of them, who seems a bit hesitant about, not hesitant, it's just that it seems very clear that for her, she wasn't exactly into this whole thing. She was more like forced into it. So the party was making several grounds, like trying to convince her to leave the coven. And I don't know. I wish I had failed more of those roles because I would have used them more in combat, but I couldn't justify it for their character. But it was some interesting character moments because they were trying to find a way to end a fight that wasn't just punching or whatever spells they have and everything like that. Like, wasn't just combat. So they were asking her about her past, like before she became a hag and things like that. And it was a somewhat similar story to what Talia had. Not exactly the same, but they both like called out for a power beyond themselves. And of course, the person who answered was the Night Matriarch, Mother Nocturnum. So they were trying to figure out what to do next. The Druid suggested that because the Night Matriarch wants Talia to keep giving nightmares to people, so the Druid was like, maybe just give them to bad people, specifically. And then the head hag, Amelie, who is totally not based on, what's her name, Lady Dimitrescu from Resident Evil. Because she's a tall, honest hag with, clawed hands. She was saying that they had to bring an extra person, so because of the casting of the spell, they may have to leave one person behind. So the hags were going to go off and pick up that person. As they were doing so, Myrtle, this other hag, she left behind a part of the Winter Hag's ice staff that she had used to cast the spell to get them there, stealthily leaving it behind for the rest of the party to use. And then there was some discussion as to how they would deal with this, while also having a conversation with Myrtle. Because as far as they could tell, Amelie was the only one who specifically hated all of them for multiple reasons, including the fact that the party had already run into one of the hag's sisters several sessions ago and killed her. Although it seemed like the other sisters weren't too bothered by that. At least not as much as Amelie was, but she was a very rageful, vengeful person. So they were trying to figure out, like, they knew the hags were going to go bring some creature from the dream realm into the material plane. So they're trying to figure out, do we fight them here? Do we fight them in the material plane? Do we ambush them at the portal? Do we wait for them to get into town? Different things like that. And I was waiting because I know they wanted to do like a combat. So I had some ideas for combats planned. I was like, okay, if they want to fight at the portal, I have this here. Or they can fight these. If they get ambushed in the dream realm forest, I have this thing. What I didn't expect was for them to just, and I guess I should have, their plan was just to wait for them to come through the portal in the material plane and then fight them there. And I assumed they wouldn't do that because they knew that like creatures from the dream realm some of them will have fast healing inside the material world. So I don't know. I guess I didn't think they would do that, but they did. What was more interesting though was the fact that because I had some time, I had prepared like a little bit of a market inside the Dreamlands. And I had a really quirky little character ready to go. And there was a surprisingly lengthy debate about whether they wanted to go to the market or not. Like, as the players, they wanted to go see what it was, and I don't know, maybe it would have been really fun. I had fun with it, with the idea of this person, and I don't want to say too much just in case they go back. And there was lots of debate over what to do, but they eventually decided they would instead go back to where they came into the Dreamlands and head back to the material plane and then set up an ambush there. Which I thought would be like I had a map of the town if they weren't able to stop them in time, and a map in the realms, but I don't know why I didn't think, oh, they'll probably fight like at the portal itself. So I kind of had to scramble to put that together mid-session. But it was fine. I had a bunch of battle maps that I have saved, so I found a cool foresty one that was totally there the whole time and was always part of the plan.
Of course.
So, after a very high skill check to use this part of the staff to cast this spell, they were able to get back to the material plane. Unfortunately for their ambush, they did not roll stealth very well. It was in fact like 2 nat 1s, and no one got over a 10. I think no one got over like an 8, so...
Oh.
So here's the thing, is I did have that creature that I intended to bring through, and I knew what it was going to do, and I thought that battle would happen in the town. And I had, like, a map plan for the town. But, like, obviously it's going to come through with the hags, and if the hags and that creature see the party there waiting in an ambush, obviously a fight is going to start. I just hadn't particularly planned to have this creature and the hags together. I had this creature and something else it does, which I'll talk about later. Prepared for like a town fight. So I wasn't sure how this was going to go. Also, the hags are like all over the place in level. Like none of them are the same level or CR or whatever. So yeah. I don't know. It wasn't a very balanced encounter. However, there was like a whole lot of back and forth with it. Definitely Myrtle was kind of holding back. She just wanted to like slow down Talia, and then she would take out the rest of the party. Because she was like, you can't get out of this, so I'm gonna do you a favor. I'm gonna kill your friends so you can just, you know, get it out of the way.
Just get it out of your system and you can go back to work, right? Like, of course.
But unfortunately, did not work out in her favor, despite her trying to cast Sleep and using most of her spell slots for it. Okay. So, there was like plenty of debate as to what to do first, which was eventually kicked off by the druid throwing a fireball after an attempt at diplomacy, which, you know, I wish it worked out better. I know that that player likes to do the talking, which is unfortunate that the skills don't reflect it, but it's also kind of funny to me.
This druid is like, stop! And they're like, no. And you're like, ah!
Negotiations have failed.
Nice.
So yeah, then they moved into combat, getting into position. They were across like different sides of a river that was kind of long, so some people had to move to get across. Some of the hags were able to cast Fly on themselves. One of them, Amelie, this powerful, honest hag, she just like literally leapt across, and I was worried she would fail because it would be super embarrassing if she did, but she got a crit. So she just like leapt and did a superhero landing, targeting the druid, who was the last remnant of the original party who killed her sister ages ago.
Wow, battle just 1v1 me, bro. Like,
That was certainly the intent. So yeah, lightning was being cast back and forth from the storm hag. The winter hag was flying up, trying to do her own thing. Myrtle was talking to Talia and trying just to like get the sleep spell to work.
yeah.
And then this figure that they brought with them, this mysterious robed figure who seemed like a floating bundle of rags. He did at first try to use a fascinate spell on the druid who was the closest at the time. But then it was like me as Calvin, I wanted him to stick around for the fight, but then it was like I couldn't really justify it in character because they brought him here to go attack the town of Greydrift. So like if he sees this going on, he's just gonna be like, oh well, you guys got this. I'm gonna go do the thing you hired me for, which isn't
okay.
this. So he went on, and he might come back later, by which I mean he does. So he went on to do that. The bard was casting inspirational defense, which was very helpful for some checks. The fighter, I gotta figure out how to kill this fighter. One day I will. Martial classes are just far too strong, too powerful. They can't be stopped. I tried to use the iron cage on him just to slow him down so Amelie could keep focusing on the druid, but he was able to break out of it.
Too much man for this cage.
Basically. So Amelie, the honest hag, was the first one to go down because the party largely focused on her. So she got hit quite a lot right up front. So she was the first to go down, taken out by the fighter. The sleep spell was finally able to take effect. And then the fighter moved on to the winter hag, who had done like this winter storm spell on him. He was able to withstand it and then was able to land the final blow on her. So things were kind of not going in the hag's way. And at that point, they all started to chase after the person that the hags brought with them. The last two hags left, the storm hag. She covered herself in fog to try to escape. And then the blood hag, Myrtle, she basically just turned and left, running the other way. And I mean, I did use up a lot of the player resources, so I'm pretty happy about that. I was trying to, I don't know, I would kind of wish the fight was a bit more difficult, but they do have another difficult encounter coming up. Because, so at this point, the players are all pretty much in agreement that they want to go chase after the other guy who basically ran away to town. So I took that as a skill challenge instead. They rolled a series of checks using the different skills like nature, survival, athletics, performance to make their way through the forest.
Performance?
Yeah, I mean the bard is playing some inspirational music.
Dude.
Basically, yeah. And because of all their successes, they were able to catch up to this figure before they were able to hurt anyone, but not before they were able to summon two nightmare creatures. So essentially, They're facing up against this guy who is fairly powerful, and his two creatures, which are also fairly powerful. I'm not going to say how powerful, but more than Kaivanth.
Oh, damn. More than Kaivanth, the ultimate being? Like, what?
I mean, Kaivanth was the ultimate being according to Kaivanth. So.
According to me, too. Like, listen. I represent Kaivanth. Represent. All right. He was the true OG. All right. He was right. Kaivanth for president.
That's fair. So yeah, they've got like 3 creatures that are more powerful than Kaivanth. They were able to get there before anyone in the town died, which is Nito. Because I was for sure gonna kill someone important, but no, I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, so they've got the guy there. They've got these 2 creatures. They don't know like I mean, they did some research, so they're a bit prepared for this, but they are down on resources. So I don't know how this next fight's gonna go. I kind of wanted the hags to be a bit more difficult, but they do, between their hero points and what they had on them already, and like splitting them up and trying to talk down Myrtle, which I still think is a very valid way to end a fight. I just wanted it to be a bit more brutal. But I mean, now they're down some resources, they're down some health, and they're facing these guys, so we'll see how it goes. which is it's a very quick summary, but I didn't want to take up too much time just because we're almost at like an hour already. That's why. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this game. I just wanted to give people a chance to use their spells and abilities. I haven't put enough fear in them. I thought a varying amount of hags would do that, but running a bunch of spellcasters is kind of complex, and part of me is wondering if I didn't do it effectively.
I mean, they were doing the things that they wanted to do, right? Like you were playing them, you're playing the character, not so much like what optimally you're supposed to do. Because optimal thing would be like everybody cast Fireball
Basically.
until they don't, then switch to the next damaging spell until everyone's dead, right? Like it's like everyone's flying, everyone's shooting lightning bolts and fireballs, and the fighter is like, I don't know, locked up somewhere. Like you just dimension him door out. Like that's like it.
Basically, like Gamer Calvin was looking at Myrtle's stats and just hovering over that nuke button, but then like she wouldn't do that at this point.
Yeah, right. I mean, if anything, you could have just had everybody run away. Like, I'm surprised you didn't just have everyone run away. In all honesty, like as the fight started to turn. I mean, maybe not Amelie because that lady is out for blood, but like maybe like 1 or 2 rounds in, everyone's like, I would rather, because to me, like hags are strong and scary, but in like a straight up fight, like they don't really feel like the straight up kind of fight you to the death kind of character. They're like,
Fair,
okay,
yeah.
I will leave and stalk you for like months and make your life a living hell from the shadows. And then once you're like broken, I'll come in and be like, "Rrr, rrr, it was me all along."
It was Hagatha all along. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple left alive to do that. Plus, they were like followers of the Night Matriarch, who is literally the power source for the witch characters. So hopefully she doesn't go to sleep anytime soon.
Oh yeah, the whole party. I just realized that they're all fucked. We hope you'd get a night's rest, bro. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you were all just in the dream realm.
like a game mechanic, Holmes. Like, oh jeez.
So yeah, a couple of hags went down. I'm sure there will be consequences for it. But there are some still active, and Myrtle is going to go do something. Stormhag is certainly going to go do something. And yeah, the town's being attacked by nightmares.
Cool. Well, that sounds super fun. Always a good time with the Draco Coronum gang.
At some point, they will actually be able to go get a part of this Draco Coronum.
It just feels like there's just so much in the way.
I mean, they're reducing some of the problems now.
True.
That was really like the last of the things that's in the way. So other than the Willy Wonka inspired dungeon that's coming up, they've got a pretty open schedule.
Yes.
I did get an add-on for Foundry that you can make like a quest list in. And you can mark like quests as complete and stuff. So
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna hopefully have that ready for next game. But yeah, big fan of Foundry. Again, big fan of like you roll an attack, and then you could just like roll the damage. You can click on the damage in the chat, and if you have your character selected, it'll apply that damage. Or if you have to roll a save, you can just click on your character, click on the save button, it'll roll it and tell you, oh, you failed by 1. So you just take your damage or whatever, or put your status. And when you take damage and stuff, like it shows it above your head like a video game, like when you do statuses as well.
It's kind of cool.
And when you get knocked unconscious, it automatically marks you as prone, which is
nice.
A fun thing. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Foundry. Like I keep saying, like if you want me to just set up a server for you, and if you want to use it, like I'll do it, man.
True.
But yeah, that's what's going on in the Crown of Dragons campaign. So next time we play, I will be throwing some stuff at these guys. I got to make sure that's ready because we got some big plans for that day, and we got some big stuff coming up. which I don't want to say exactly what it is just yet, as we transfer into the outro of the show. But we got like a whole lot of really cool stuff planned coming up in the next few weeks. So if you want to see what that is, be sure to stick around, hit the sub button, hit that bell so you get a notification when our new episodes go up, new episodes of the podcast, and new streams as well. Took a break this week, but I should be back with more energy. Really wanted to get back to Outer Worlds because I'm doing the DLC stuff, so I'm going to be excited to do that. And of course, we got to give a bunch of shout-outs to people real quick. I'm just going to run through these. Check out Shaka's Field Guide to Infocane. There's a link to the itch.io page below where you can get a PDF and an LCP file to put into your CompCon. There's a link to Celeste's Lancer RPG NPC guides for people who want to know how to run certain classes of NPCs in games. Replay podcast, really cool podcast with a diverse group of people who are in gaming, tabletop, video game, and otherwise. Untold Stories Project, where I'm at every week playing Mutants and Masterminds. We also played a Suicide Squad one-shot last week. Oh gosh, I don't know how to describe the ending of it because it was incredibly ridiculous. Needless to say, I hope we come back for the Suicide Squad of tomorrow.
Cool.
Because we kind of stole a spaceship. Well, a time ship, I should say.
Time ship. All right. So you guys are a bunch of criminals with a time ship. You guys are gonna be time pirates.
Hard to tell.
Strong possibility, but not 100%, right?
So yeah, go check that out. And there is a thing coming up, but they haven't announced it yet, so I'm not gonna spoil it. But be sure to check out that channel if you are into Mutants and Masterminds. And I think that's going to do it for this episode.
All right.
So, yeah, definitely stick around this channel. If you like Lancer, stick around. We've got a lot of stuff coming up. And with that, I think it's about time for us to sign off.
All right. That was fun. Give the people what they want to hear.
Well, folks, remember out there, be sure to go watch The Legend of Vox Machina. And if you do... just let us know how you think about it. And also, keep in mind to... I don't know. Do I want to... I feel like I'm stumbling across my own catchphrase. Jeez.
Just remember to...
Keep on winning.
Winning with
dice.
It's... damn it, we almost did it together.
Later, folks.
Yeah.